We are here and we are can't say it. Welcome to the Hummel Show. More me. I'm sure many of you are thrilled. Well, I guess you would be thrilled if you're listening to my show. Otherwise, just X out. Go watch your cat videos. 813-90-BUBBA. You'd like to call in and have a chat. I'd be lying if I didn't say I wasn't relieved. Sorry, Rhett, if I said things I didn't mean when I was stressed. I didn't mean them. It was my mistake. I'll be with you probably for the next, I always say, like, I'm going to make it a short show, and I never do because I get talking and I can't stop. That's the problem. Is I like to talk, and I like to talk about the things that I find interesting. And some of us are on the same page in terms of geopolitics and in terms of our interests. It's not that we have to agree on everything, but we like talking about things that we perceive matter and things that we value. And this isn't a sports show. That's not really my interest. But if you do like talking about longevity and geopolitical terror, then this is the show for you. If you want to lose some weight via intermittent fasting, or you want to talk about problems going on in Ukraine, China, Russia, the United States, I'm here for it. I certainly am. And I really was trying for the last 2 days not to make the show exclusively about the conflict in the Middle East because, even at a certain point for myself, I have to turn it off. It's like, okay, no more. I need to watch something dumb. I need to watch people eating donuts. I need to just watch something to kind of take away that feeling of dread and terror because, even though I think it's important, and this isn't empirical. This is just like subjectively how I feel. I think it's important to educate yourself and to be in the know and keep your a slight hand, on the pulse of things going on. Not always. It is certainly vital and very important to take a step back sometimes and not just be, a drone to your phone, a drone to the news, because that can have some deleterious effects on just mental health and well-being. And I talk to people who I'm very close with who, used to spend more time combing through the news, and they've really taken a step back, whether it be because they had a job change or they made a concerted effort to not be just a zombie to the news, and they're happier for it. There's most news that we consume is not good news. It's rare that something is in the news that we can all rally behind. And even though I want to just hate on the dumbness of people just going ape shit over Taylor Swift dating the football guy who was irrelevant before she came along. Just kidding. I know that'll trigger some guys out there. Even though I think that's dumb, that's what our society cares about, I also get that it's a beautiful escape from not only our own problems, but the world's problems, is to kind of indulge into something silly. But just knowing that it is kind of silly, because for me, after I watched like almost 3 hours of news relating to Iran, to Israel, to Hamas, to Iraq, like I was doing like a full Middle East update. Sometimes I go back in history. I'm like, let me look up at some Al Qaeda stuff just to refresh. And, if maybe we're talking about something in the news about Saudi Arabia, and it's like, okay, maybe I should just do an Osama bin Laden refresh, bin Laden family refresh a little bit, because I think it's interesting. And it's certainly in recent history, in recent memory. And a lot of the issues that we deal with today are remnants of the past, the not so distant past. So I think it's important to kind of to refresh. And I also understand that things like come and go through the public sphere of compassion and caring and concern. And it was like an odd thing to be like, not that we got over 9/11. I don't want to say that, but there was a time where 9/11 was in the news every single day for years. 9/11 Commission, obviously the attacks, the stories from survivors, the stories from people who lost family members and friends. And then that subsided. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. Obviously it's never forget, but society needs to move forward, to push forward. It's always about absolutely identifying a problem, talking about an issue, but moving forward. And then oftentimes that is incurring or dealing with a new problem. It's really hard to care a lot about COVID, Ukraine, the fentanyl crisis, Israel at the same time. So you go through, as Bubba says, ebbs and flows, Oh, shit, it's Brian from Philly. $20. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Brian. Even if it's a lie, it's a kind gesture. I tried my best. It's not easy to fill Bubba's shoes, and I'm not saying I even did, but I just kind of kept the ship afloat was the goal, not to bring you the same level of entertainment as the one and only Bubba the Love Sponge can do, who will be back Monday, who's at a wedding in Vegas. He instructed, that was the only thing he told me. He's like, listen, bitch, every time you come back from break, you better say that this is the Bubba the Love Sponge show. It's not the program. And also tell him I'm in Vegas and then I'll be back on Monday every single fucking time you come back from break. And I said, aye, Captain, absolutely. So I made sure that, because people are listening in, tuning in, and all the time, coming in and out. So you need to remind the people where he is and tell new people, that he will be back, that he's not gone, he's not dead, and everything is A-okay. 813-90-BUBBA. So, this conflict has been weighing heavy on my mind. And this isn't like a plea to feel sorry for me or anything like that. I almost feel guilty that I can't do more. And not sure what exactly I can do. And it was a weird sensation to want to feel connected to that community, the Jewish community, because I feel like I turned my back on them so many years ago. And it's not like I completely threw the baby out with the bathwater. It was hard because once you leave the community, you stop going to synagogue. There's really no, I've pretty much lived away from family since I was in college, with the exception of a few, maybe a year and a half. So I really haven't been around a large Jewish community, although in Sydney I was, but that was more of like a conduit to find contacts and friends. I did go to a few Shabbat dinners, but it was mostly for the challah bread. Let's be real. I decided not to indulge and engage in any sort of Jewish cultural rituals or anything. Here and there, I might light a menorah or something like that. But I really don't. I don't subscribe to anything like that. I certainly feel closer to people who are, fans of Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and like discussing things like religion and geopolitics and are rational free thinkers, maybe oftentimes libertarians. I feel closer to those people who are advocates for evolution. That's more of my tribe than just kind of, because I feel like that's a conscious choice, right? Like I have these interests, I have these ideas, beliefs, and values, and I find similar people, whatever color they are, I don't really care, but they have minds similar to mine in terms of how they operate and how they face problems and how they analyze things. And to me, that is more significant than just a shared bloodline, which I didn't choose, which chose me. I didn't choose that life, it chose me. This seems to be more of a conscious choice when I decide to feel more connected to a community like the jiu-jitsu community, where we have a shared interest in this sport and we're willing to put ourselves through a lot of shit to get better. You're going to look dumb. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get bruised up. You're going to be humbled. And we're kind of all on this journey together. That's a choice. That's a conscious choice to do that. So I feel close to those people. You really feel, I'm not comparing it to war, obviously, but you're really in the trenches with these people when you're getting, just fucking hammered and choked. And, I say all those things, but it's been one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given, is to be able to train with these people and to learn from them, and also to not quit. Although I didn't go for the last 2 days, was just not feeling it. Wanted to make sure I got adequate sleep, which kind of happened but didn't because I went to bed really late last night. But I did take a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day. I'm just kind of all out of sorts. I ate half a chocolate cake yesterday. It was a small cake, but I still ate half of it, and it was really fucking good. And thank you, Blitz, for getting for me. All right, let's take some calls. Hello, who's this?
Hey, Anna, how are you doing?
How are you doing? I'm doing well.
Not too bad.
Okay.
Anna, this is Chad. Believe it or not, yesterday was the first time I've called in to the morning show.
Okay.
And I've been listening to Bubba since I moved from New York, since 1994.
Damn.
And
30 years next year.
I usually listen, and I'm a big Bubba fan anytime I go and I see him. But I don't like to call in, but I was just overwhelmed because of the stuff that's happening. And I called in yesterday because, in my opinion, I think Bubba's assembled the best crew since he's been on radio.
I appreciate
love
that.
the chemistry between you guys.
Yeah.
Brian can be a little schwarmy.
Yeah.
But the reason I called in was because he was talking over Lum.
Yeah.
Lummy had the facts, and Lummy was giving him the facts, and he was speaking like the squad. And
yeah. I mean, Brian's really articulate. So even if he is wrong or incorrect, and he's also a lawyer, so he knows how to flim-flam in a way that, Lummy doesn't.
Yeah, and Lummy, everybody say, Bubba, we make jokes. I think Lummy's a very smart guy.
Lummy is not as dumb as everyone makes him out to be. I will tell you that. I've had some conversations with Lummy where I was like, oh, wow. There are pockets of things where he knows a lot about, whether it be sports, the Bible, World War II, and the fish market, and bees. He knows a lot about bees and pollinating.
Yes, he does. Yeah. And I just wanted to apologize because I should have given credit to the entire show because you guys did such an awesome job without Bubba. And I'm sure he's proud of you guys.
I hope so. Or just not
really
angry. I'll take not angry. He doesn't even need to be proud. Just not upset. That's all I need from him.
No, I think he will be proud.
All right,
you guys did awesome. You guys did awesome. And just to let you know, there's only 2 people that I miss from the old Bubba show.
Yeah.
It's one and the only Blitz.
Yep.
And I miss me a little bit of Brent.
Okay.
The other ones, I really don't care for.
Okay.
But
that's fair.
I think you guys
are
doing a
good
hell of a job.
Thank you.
And keep up the good work.
I appreciate that, Chad. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
All right. God bless.
And keep listening to you. God bless you too.
Thank you. What's up?
Yo, it's the homie with a little baloney, clocking the hose, fat down the pocket, say it.
Is this Florida Stanley?
On a Hummel, show the Super Bowl.
Oh, shit. Because Florida Stanley said he was going to call in, so that's why I had him on the brain.
Oh,
Joe the Supermarket.
I sense it.
No, because he said it during the main show. He wanted to chit-chat before he goes to Tokyo.
Yeah, speaking of the main show, I do have to apologize, even though I promised it had absolutely nothing to do with me. But for the first time in history, there was a faulty phone line. Something crazy was going on because as soon as Dr. Dan started talking,
you couldn't hear shit.
No.
My show's starting. Ooh, it's okay. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Sorry, Joe. You've been interrupted by a next gen, but that's okay. That's good.
No, I love Next Gen. It's my favorite. You should pull up. No, I know you can't, but one of these days, you got to hear some of my clips on there.
Yeah.
There was one time I was high as hell on angel dust, and I was at WWF in Hartford, Connecticut. And it was during the holidays, so Bubba was doing nighttime shows.
Yeah.
So I called him up live on Twitch, and I didn't even know what was going on. We were talking back and forth. Angel dust had given me like a devil voice. I didn't even have my voice
I hate when that happens.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's crazy. So I'm in the middle of saying something, and then the 1, 2, 3 happened, and John Cena won, and I went ballistic, and I was yelling and screaming about John Cena, and then they turned the lights on as people were filing out. I started cussing out all the marks and swearing at them loud, live on the air, and then I looked down, and there was a little girl in a tiny little pink fluffy jacket, and I go, "And you, the little girl in the little pink jacket," and then I put the dump button down, and that was hot right at the time, but that's not why I called. I called number one to apologize for that goofy nonsense that happened this morning. That I never get the chance to talk to Dr. Dan ever.
I know.
So I really wanted to pick his brain on that situation, and I was so excited because the one thing I wanted to ask him was about CO2 levels, because that's what made me an R in the past. I've been in the hospital more times intubated because of my CO2 levels, because I was using a faulty CPAP machine to sleep with.
Oh, the PAP.
So, yeah, so I didn't know if that's what it was, because they couldn't figure out nothing. So when they do that, they do an arterial blood draw out of your wrist. You ever had that?
Oh, a what?
Have you ever arterial blood draw out of your wrist?
Out of my wrist? No.
Yeah.
I had a blood test.
Oh my God.
A blood test, but no, I never had that.
Yeah, so we know when they do blood tests, they just do a little prick and then they take your blood and it's all that. This is like stabbing a sharp razor blade / knife directly into your wrist, right? You know, right in that.
I know where the wrist is. Yep. Thank you. I get it.
One little part. Oh my God, it hurts so much. They have to do that multiple times. That's how they get my A1C.
Okay.
And then that's how they test your blood gases for CO2. But on a lighter note, today in history, October 13th, 1997, Bubba the Love Sponge wrestled the Texas Hangman.
No way.
On Nitro.
You really are a supermark. Holy shit.
Well, check it out. I want to get you on the next level, because if you go to Bubba's Twitter right now, you can pull up a picture and you can see him.
Oh, did he post it?
There's no video.
I haven't been on Twitter today. Yeah.
Well, based on what you were saying, where we want to talk about fat people and squishing donuts and all that stuff, that would just bring such a lighthearted spirit to you and put a smile on your face. I guarantee it.
I bet it will, and I will check it out after the show, most certainly.
I'm excited when you do, and everybody's already set up, but you already know. Great job.
Thank you.
And to all the haters that say fire Anna and whatnot, this is in their face. If Anna wasn't here, who would be the one hosting the show?
That's a great question. And I don't think any of those assholes have an answer, so...
Because not only did you step up, but you also did an awesome job. You made both days fly by. And that's primarily, I know a lot of people have different reasons why they listen to the show.
Yeah.
I listen to the show because I love it, but it also makes the morning go by. Without the show, time is just going to slowly drag on. And in my situation, we can't have that.
Right.
So God bless you, sweetheart. Thank you so much.
God bless. Stay safe. Thank you. Thank you. Hello?
It's Florida Stanley.
There he is. What's going on, man? So you're going to Tokyo.
Yeah, so, like certain people like impulse buy.
Mm-hmm.
I impulse vacation.
I think that's awesome.
I'm on a plane at least every 2 months, if not every month for most of the part. I got family in Ohio, and I just travel around. And like that whole Colorado Springs thing, that was like a impulse thing. I booked it like a week and a half before I actually went.
Yeah.
So this whole thing with Tokyo, it started with Hanabi, that Japanese female band.
The chick band. Yep.
So they were I wasn't just in Colorado Springs to see the Dropout Kings. They were playing too, and I've been wanting to see them for a while. So it just worked out. Well, that venue, I don't know if you remember, but I told you there was only like 300 or 400 people there. It was a tiny little dive, metal bar. So I want to go to one of their big shows, and I looked up their tour dates. And I've been wanting to go to Tokyo for probably 20 years now. So I looked.
And you've never been to Japan before, is that right?
No, I spent 3 weeks in China a few years ago, but I have not been to Japan.
Okay.
So, but I have been in a lot of other Asian countries. I looked up their tour dates, and they're playing in Tokyo an 8,000 person venue with Limp Bizkit on my birthday.
Whoa! And when is your birthday?
November 20th.
Oh, it's the same as Biden's and Krista Diaco's.
Yes. So I was like, this, like Limp Bizkit, I've been listening to them since I was in 6th grade.
I didn't know the band members were still alive. I'm like, how is Fred Durst? Is he alive and well?
you have got to look up recent pictures of him in concert. He
looks like shit.
He dresses like an 80-year-old dude, and he does it on purpose just to fuck with people. It's hilarious.
In concert, I gotta check this out right now.
He wears like khakis,
5 days,
an overcoat, red fucking Jimmy Buffett sunglasses.
Let's see.
It's hilarious.
I need to see this. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I fuck with this.
So he's playing with Hannah B at an 8,000, a huge venue where they're going to have like lasers and pyro and all sorts of shit it's right outside of downtown Tokyo. So I was like, fuck yeah. And that lines up with Thanksgiving. So I can take like almost 2 weeks off of work.
Okay.
Thanksgiving week, it's kind of slow. So I'm going out there for 9 days.
Excellent. Well, that's going to be awesome.
Have you been to Japan?
No, I've never been to Japan. I want to say I'd love to go, but it's definitely not even on like my top 10 places of places to visit. You know, I really want to go to the Mediterranean, like really, really, really bad. I really want to go see Greece. Greece is a big one for me. Italy, Malta, Croatia. Like that region intrigues me. And and then I'd probably maybe hit up South America if I felt safe enough. Like Dan was talking about going to the Galapagos. That'd be cool. I could see me doing that sort of stuff. Maybe a trip to Alaska at some point. And then maybe down the line, you know, maybe number 11 or 12, we could throw Japan in there. But I hear it's a fucking weird place, man. I remember talking to this guy who he was this older gentleman. He used to frequent an Embassy Suites I worked at in Detroit. And I don't even remember what his name was. It started with a W, like Winfried. It was something weird. It was German. And he's like, yeah, I've been all over the world. And I was like, really? I'm like, where you been? Or I said, what's the most bizarre place that you've been? He's like, the only place I haven't really been able to figure out is Japan. He's like, and I lived there. He said he lived there, and he was just like, it's just.
What was his reasoning?
I think it was just like the culture was so much different than what he was used to. Like there was some commonality between America and Germany, or between America or Germany and Australia, say, or other places in the West. But he just said that fucking like the Japanese culture was so intricate and so different and so weird to him, like really foreign, that it took him a long time to try to like quote figure it out, even though he lived there. Okay. He was also like a big fat white bald guy, so he stuck out. So you know maybe they were treating him kind of weird too.
Yeah. Well, I had a couple friends that have been over there for an extended period of time. One of them was military. Yeah. So he was there for like 6 months. The other one was there for a month. It wasn't military. He was just there to fuck off on vacation. But both of them said that, I mean, yes, strange, but in a good way. Both of them said that the Japanese culture people, they're super nice. They try and help. Not a lot of them speak English, so they try and they'll pull your phone, they'll grab your phone, and they'll use the translator app to communicate with you. Yeah. And they try and help you out in any different way they can. Yeah, but they said it was weird, but in a good way.
Yeah. Maybe they're just assuming you're American and they don't want to get bombed again. So like, hey, please stop. Hey, we're cool.
I'm really excited to go.
Yeah.
The concert, obviously the concert's only one night, but I was like, well, if it's near Thanksgiving and it's my birthday, I'm going to go for as long as I can, which ended up being about 9 days. And I'm staying in a hotel in downtown Tokyo. And
okay, I thought it was coming up I thought you were leaving on Monday or something crazy.
No, next month.
Next month, right? Yeah. Gotcha.
Next month, yeah.
Gotcha.
And then, so I've been all over the world as well, and I always like trying like weird food and shit. Yeah. That, like you can't get in the U.S. Like when I was in China, I ate scorpions. I'm sure you can do that in the U.S., but it's not common. But so if you look up this video, it's frog sushi. They basically gut the frog and they put it on a plate in front of you. The frog is still alive while you're eating its internals, and it's on the plate staring at you, watching you eat it. There's a video of a restaurant in Japan that does this, and I think I'm going to try it.
I mean, you know I'm a vegetarian, right? I can't get on board. I mean, listen, if you want to eat meat
weird, gross shit.
or eat things,
for you to try it, but just look up the video.
No, I don't like watching videos of animals getting eaten while they're alive. That seems like some next level shit. Although I have watched that. I think it was also in Japan, maybe China. It was one of those. And it was like this restaurant where you go, like downstairs and you choose which like baby octopus you want to eat. And then they put it in a soup, and then you go upstairs, which is the restaurant, and you sit down and you just slurp up and chew on a live fucking baby octopus. And I was like, you know what? I'm changing the channel here.
Liked octopus, but I'm not a big fan of octopus.
Well, I've tried eel, not a fan. Actually, it wasn't bad. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, with your eel thing.
Yeah, that was an accidental eel episode. Which seems silly now to get so upset about, but I'm still mad about it when I think about it. And every time I talk or text Jennifer, she always brings it up, and I'm like, oh God, it makes me mad all over again. I'll never get over that.
Her, by the way, and schedule that Botox for the 27th.
Yeah, I need Botox myself.
Well,
yep.
I'm gonna self-edit, and I'll see you on the 27th.
All right, sir. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
See you in a little bit. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Japan's a weird place. I feel like I think it's one of the most homogenous societies on the planet. And I want to say homogenous, a homogenous place that people actually want to go to. You know, like maybe Yemen's really homogenous, but no one wants to vacation in Yemen. Which is a shame because, and I heard, I think his name is Andrew Bustamante. He's an ex-CIA operative, and he was talking about like how it is so sad that so many like incredible cultural places are just completely off limits because of policy. Their government sucks or whatnot. Like he was talking about what was it, like North Korean like dancing, or Persian, Iranian essentially architecture. He's like, it's beautiful, it's stunning, and nobody can go see it because Iran fucking sucks. I don't know how else to say it. It's strange though. I find with Iranians, and I know many of them because my best friend from back home is Persian, and so I picked up a few Farsi words here and there after the course of being friends with her for over 20 years, and I've really never seen a disconnect between like people who have left the country and the country itself. Like most Iranians that left Iran are fucking secular. I've yet to meet one that was really Muslim at all. They're very westernized. They all went to school in America, highly educated. The women too, like all of them have like fucking masters and PhDs and shit. And they've really embraced Western culture and a Western way of living. And the only thing that remains is essentially like Iranian culture. And and Iranians are not Arabic, by the way. They're not Arab, and they don't speak Arabic. They speak Farsi. So it is interesting that they preserve that part of their culture, but it's completely separate from Islam. At least, again, the many Iranians, the many Persians I knew in San Diego, and the many I knew in Santa Barbara who were mostly from LA. That's kind of like what their shtick was, is they were not Muslim, but they definitely had like the Persian New Year, and there were a few other like holidays that were very specific, like a Thanksgiving would be for America. Like that's not like a Christian holiday; it's like an American holiday sort of thing. Oh shit, Mike Durbin. $49.99, but I'll round it up to $50. Thank you so much for your continued support. Very much appreciated. I got to make that money, especially for the Bubs. It's nice for him to come back, look at the books, and go, okay, the boys and girls did well without me. So I appreciate you, Mike, very, very much, and Brian from Philly as well. 813-90-Bubba. But what was it? Oh, the Iranians, the Persians, they love nice things. They love Audis. They love BB, which I don't know if that's even a brand anymore, but all of my Persian friends, when I was shopping at Wet Seal like a jobber, they would shop at BB because they were fancy pants. And they liked glitter, and they liked the like diamonds. They liked the kind of more like gaudy shit, as my Armenian friend calls it, Gaddafi chic. She's like, yeah, they're very, Gaddafi chic sort of a thing. But I've never really seen a disconnect like that with any other kind of group of people where, they're proud people where they come from, but they're like, the government's got it totally wrong. We don't support any shit that they're doing. A lot of the Persians that left, many are Jews, some are Christians, some are Muslim, but so my best friend from back home, when she came back, not when she came back, she was born in fucking Chicago, but whatever. When her parents left Tehran and moved to the States, I remember having a conversation with her grandparents when we were kids. I'm like, so were you guys Muslim? And they're like, no, we're Zoroastrian. And I'm like, oh, damn. That's a throwback for sure. Before they were conquered by, I'm assuming, the Ottoman Empire, but don't quote me on that. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, so one of the most religious countries in the world. I mean, the people that have left, none of them that I have met, I know there are some, but almost none of them are really deeply religious. Usually see that from places like Saudi Arabia or Lebanon or something like that. But the Iranians that left are they're driving Audis, they're shopping at BB, Guess, just making shit ton of money. Yes. 813-90 Bubba. Oh man. I don't really feel free to call in about the Israeli-Palestinian thing because we're getting live updates. I was watching what I thought was live footage from Gaza, just a YouTube video with a live feed, but I don't think it was live because it was dark when it was dark here, and I'm like, I know it's fucking light outside. But of what we know now, I think that Israel has told the Palestinians in the northern part of Gaza to vacate and move south because they're about to level the northern part of the Gaza Strip, which, by the way, for reference, is 25 miles long and 6 miles wide. So that's the amount of space that is the Gaza Strip. And within that space, it's pretty densely populated. I want to say 2.1, 2.2 million people. I mean, I don't know if that's like that now. But as you all know, the Israelis have cut off the water, the fuel, the energy from Gaza, telling people to leave, if they can to the best of their ability. And again, oftentimes Hamas says, nope, y'all just fucking stay where you are and ignore the calls of the Israelis to leave, because it seems like, again, the Israeli forces and the Israeli government are more interested in preserving Palestinian lives than Hamas is. And that obviously is a major problem. And I've tried to look at, situations where things turned around, and this seems to be one where I don't know if that's possible. It seems it's a very dire situation when you think that the only solution is, I mean, I feel like I have to say now, the final solution. When you feel like you have to eradicate people completely, and how do you unindoctrinate kids who've been told to hate a certain group of people basically from birth? How do you undo that? And I think the answer is you really can't. Exposure therapy. I mean, again, they wouldn't allow for that. They don't want to humanize the other side. And I'm not going to say that that's every Palestinian. I've met many Palestinians, and it's funny, whenever I meet someone and I can see that they're from the Middle East, I often try to guess. It's a fun game for me. And a lot of times they're Palestinian. And there's always this laugh I do. I'm like this awkward laugh. And depending on who they are, I might say oh, we're neighbors, I was born in Israel, and sometimes they're cool about it. Rarely they're not, but especially when you meet them here in the States. I mean, we're both American here, but there obviously are deep ties to the region. I met a guy who was a friend of a friend when I went to Brooklyn. We went to New York back in May, and it was a bit of an awkward exchange. He, said he was Palestinian, and I made a joke about the Jews, and he ran with it in a weird way. And listen, if I make the joke and you run with it, I made the joke, I take responsibility for it, but I felt the need to come back and be like, yo, I'm Jewish though, so don't take it too far, Mr. Nazi Pants. And he said something about it. Said something about Israel, and it wasn't hostile or anything. And he goes, no. Like, I'm not an anti-Semite. Like, he's like, I love Jews. I have lots of friends that are Jews. I'm Palestinian, but like, I have a lot of friends that are Jews. I mean, you have to. You live in New York. But he goes, I'm just anti-Zionist. And I just looked at him and I'm like, let's just keep drinking. Like, we were at a nightclub. I was there to see my friend, Vanna. He was friends with Vanna. And I just looked at him. The music's, 50 Cent is blasting. They were playing all the hits from like the early 2000s. So it was really like it was a millennial stronghold, I could feel. And I was like, let's just keep drinking because I don't want to talk about that now. I was already about 2.5 drinks deep. So I'm like, I'm not trying to yell over, Ja Rule about geopolitical issues. And we're obviously going to get into a fight about it. So trying to avoid that. But I would say that most people, when you meet them, especially outside of the hotbed of the region, and they are the other. So maybe you are Indian and you meet a Paki person, or you are a Hutu and you meet a Tutsi or whatever, or you're a Jew person, or you're Jewish and you meet a Muslim. Outside of that region, it's like, fuck, you're just another person, man. You're just a human being like me who wants the exact same thing, that just wants to be able to do what you want to do, be left alone, and be free to do it. And that's why we're here. And that's why we live in America. Although there are some Americans that are self-hating Americans, which for the life of me, please leave. Like, just please get the fuck out, because everybody wants to be here. Not everybody. A lot of people want to be here. America gets a lot of shit, but why is it the case that millions of people are pouring into the border? Maybe it's to hurt us. Maybe that's it, obviously. But there are a lot of people who are, I believe, genuinely looking for a better life than where they came from, wherever that may be, whether it's Guatemala or Nicaragua or Haiti or wherever the fuck that they're from. America is better. And I know that, and I'm very, proud American, as I think most people should be. That doesn't mean that you don't call out the flaws of America, because no place is perfect. And America makes mistakes, and sometimes it does bad things. Like, sometimes they're not mistakes. Sometimes they're purposeful, and they send you to war because the war makes money. And, when I look at things like Vietnam or Iraq, I mean, just things that shouldn't have happened at all. And it was bad policy, and a lot of people died. And that is okay to call out and say, hey, that's not good. We need to not do that anymore. But in the same breath, also be very grateful where you come from, and the fact that we are freer here than pretty much anywhere else on the planet. And that the sentiments and the pillars of this country are so unique. It really was like an experiment where it was a government run by the people for the people. It was the first time that it wasn't just a monarchy or an emperor, and that there were checks and balances, and there wasn't any one man, woman, or baby that was in charge of everybody else. So, I mean, of course, there's leaders. You have to have leadership. But, when you have the judicial system checking the legislative branch, checking the executive branch, we're doing the best that we can. That doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but I'm proud of this country, of its history, some of it, not all of it, slavery, very, very bad. But you got to say, listen, it is better here than pretty much anywhere else on the planet. And a lot of people recognize that. And that's why you see such a vibrant mosaic of people and cultures here. There's Chinatowns, and there's Chabads, and there's mosques, and there's lots of, Spanish music at the Dunedin Causeway. Like, we got it all, and we should be proud of that. 813-90 Bubba. There were a few things I wanted to talk about that are, shifting gears. And again, feel free to call in 813-90 Bubba about the geopolitical situation going on in the Middle East, and what you think we should do about it. Is it America's job to intervene in every fucking conflict on the planet? I would argue no. And even coming from a bias, and I'll admit it, it's a biased perspective where, I was born in Israel. I'm Jewish culturally and ethnically, although non-practicing. But that doesn't mean I don't have a connection to the place. I mean, my parents are friends who currently live there. Obviously, we had one call in on Wednesday, or was it Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday. And so they certainly have a connection to Israel, and I certainly have a connection to Israel. But I also want to be level-headed and go, listen, just because this is somehow closer to home for me doesn't mean it's necessarily in the best interest of America to get involved. I had Ukrainian friends that I knew from high school that were going on and on social media about how, the United States needs to get involved in Ukraine. It's like, I get where you want to help your own. I get it. But also, I mean, you got to think logically. Is this another conflict that America needs to get involved in? And the answer to that, at least what I think the answer to that is I don't know. I don't know. We've been involved in a lot of wars over the last 2 decades, proxy and otherwise. We get out of the Cold War, which... the Korean War, the Vietnam War, we get out of that, the USSR dissolves, and then 9/11 happens. And we get involved in 2 very long wars that should have been over long before the, horrific withdrawal, an embarrassing withdrawal back in, I think it was summer of 21. I can't believe it was like over 2 years ago now, which was really embarrassing. And a lot of lives were lost. Not just in the withdrawal, but also in the conflicts that persisted. And, I think I'm particularly interested in the Iraq War and the scandal surrounding that and how that was pitched to the American public to try to garner support for that war specifically, because that was really a leap of logic. Because, again, I was not... Admittedly, I was not very involved in what was going on. I wasn't paying attention. Even in college, I wasn't. And I wish that I was, because I feel like I would have been farther ahead. Had I been as dedicated to the cause, and by the cause, I mean just educating myself now as I was back then, I feel like I would have just had a larger breadth of knowledge, and I would have remembered more, because there's so much of like the past in my early 20s and late teens where I just don't really remember things happening, because I would get it like second, third hand, oh, did you hear about this, that, the other? I personally wasn't like seeking out the information myself, and I regret that. 1999 from Kevin O'Keefe. Thank you so much. Always so supportive. Reaches out on Cameo every once in a while. Kevin, I appreciate you. Who also watches my podcast that I do with Will and the Homemade Broadcast every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Just saying, shameless plug. But so the Iraq War is, I wish I would have paid more attention to that in real time, but I was young. I was like, 2004, I was 19, and I just didn't really care. I wish I could say that I did. I was just like, well, I guess we're just fighting the bad guys, whatever. But now I'm just like, what the fuck? How are we so bamboozled to get on board with going to another country? Why were we there? The weapons of mass destruction. It's now come out that there were no weapons of mass destruction at the time that we went in there, or if there were, they were never found. And how we bamboozled not only Americans, but, much of NATO. There were British forces there. I'm sure there were French forces there as well, but it was mostly American forces. And we decided we needed to go in there, and for what? And Lemmy and I were having this discussion about, the oil, and maybe that was the goal, but it doesn't seem like we really extracted much oil from Iraq. I guess the plan was for more, and it just didn't happen. Maybe that's what it was. But so the Iraq War really intrigues me, because that was, I think we did some bombing in Afghanistan pretty close after 9/11 happened, because the Taliban were essentially housing and protecting Al-Qaeda, because they're, both, into the Muslim thing. And but then Iraq, although a Muslim country, and although Saddam was a piece of shit, really had nothing to do with 9/11 whatsoever. So why the fuck were we sending Americans over there? And what's the word I'm looking for? Not seizing, but can't think of the word right now. Occupying. There it is. I was in there occupying the country that really had nothing to do with it. And, there's really 2 major schools of thought when it comes to the Iraq War, which were it was for security, to protect American interests and against weapons of mass destruction and I guess like some sort of control in the region, whatnot. And then the other school's thought is the hegemony, right? Like we needed to look big and strong because we didn't look very big and strong when the superpower of the world was taken to its knees by 19, Islamic militants that, hijacked planes and flew them into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and sadly that field in Pennsylvania. So, yeah, it just seems like it was a completely it was a war fought for who knows what. I mean, I think in the ballpark of like 500,000 Iraqis died and several thousand American soldiers died. They didn't even know why the fuck they were there. The Americans didn't. There was the weapons of mass destruction. And I remember I even remember asking, I'm like, wait, why are we in Iraq? And I remember asking this like, God, we were probably already there for like 5 or 6 years. Or asking my dad, like, why? What is it? What's the connection? Like, it wasn't super clear, right? But it was like we have to stop them because that's where the hotbed of Islamic terrorism is. Ironically, it became a hotbed, but that we need to stop them because if we don't, there's going to be another 9/11. So there's some quote by Donald Rumsfeld. I don't know it by heart. I think it was clearly off the record where it was like, we need to show we're big and strong by blowing up some shit. And Afghanistan is too small of a country and too weak of a country to really demonstrate our dominance and our power. So we need to take a country that is Iraq, which is like a middle-sized, threat, I guess you could say, where it's like, because if you start picking on like Kuwait or Qatar, it's like, okay, wow, big bad boy going after one of the smallest countries in the region, not too impressive. But if you go after like someone, a formidable opponent, then you can resume having the respect and the fear of the rest of the world. So I think that was the goal. Wow, I didn't know I was going to go on an Iraq war tangent here. I know we're talking a lot about Hamas and Israel, but all these things are connected is what I'm learning. 813-90 Bubba. I did want to discuss this briefly. Oh, no, it wasn't the Fred Durst thing. Oh, come on. Where is it? Give me a chance. All right. This is kind of like a devastating story in a different way. Better, right? It's like now these sorts of stories are more palatable. Like, oh, a mom hung herself because she wasn't allowed to see her kid. And she thought the kid, the hospital thought the kid had a fake disease and the mom was just doing it for sympathy and empathy. And the mom kills herself, maybe last week that would have hit me a lot harder, but now I'm like, all right, I mean, it's not good, but shit could be worse. No one was beheaded or burned alive. Like, it's sad that that's now the spectrum I'm working on. Like, wow, a lot more palatable. But, so this story is a person on Reddit posted, and so who knows how true it is, but it's interesting as a thought experiment. It says, I took a DNA test. Turns out I'm 100% that bitch. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I took a DNA test. My son isn't my biological child, but should I tell him? Now, the child is 2 years old, so that's kind of hard to tell a 2-year-old child, but I actually did see, it was like a YouTube short, and again, who knows how true it is, but some guy was online talking about how his daughter had to get a paternity, I don't know. He somehow comes to find out that his oldest child out of 4 is not biologically his. And so he then takes it upon himself to see, how far down the rabbit hole this goes. Turns out, and again, I don't know how true the story is, but turns out that all 4 of his children were not his. They were not related to him. So, what do you do at that point? Not that you could really reverse course with a 2-year-old, but it's probably easier to turn things around when the kid's real little than it is when you've invested 18 years or more. There's been horrific stories where, people find out 30 years later, they're 30, 35 years old. Usually it happens when they are trying to find a match, like for a kidney or something like that. And then turns out they're not related. Oops. Mommy stepped out of pocket and fucked somebody else. And she got, what do you call it? not the I don't want to say like the beta, but she found someone to take care of that kid, which in the world of biology and reproduction, that's pretty much the sucker's deal, is that as a man, you get stuck raising someone else's kid, thinking that they're your own, investing all of your time, energy, and resources, bringing home the bacon, going to work 9 to 5, or, maybe you have multiple jobs, trying to provide for your family, which you think is related to you. And then it turns out they are not. In the game of biology, that is a huge, huge L. That's the end. That's a dead end. That's a genetic cul-de-sac, if you will. So I'm curious to hear from you guys. What would you do if you found out that your child was not related to you after, X amount of years? Would you abandon mission? Excuse me. Would you reverse course? Would you maybe divorce your wife and then continue loving the child as if it were your own because you've grown such a close connection and bond to that child? I'm curious to know what you would do, because as a woman, it's like, well, which child is yours, unless, of course, they get like switched at birth or some weird shit like that. But for the most part, like, who the dad is, or you think and you certainly know it's yours, which is what really matters to people. People are very concerned about who is related to them, and for good reason. It seems like, why? Why should it matter? It's still a child. It still needs love. It's not their fault. Just raise it as if it's your own. I hear a lot of people say that, like, why is it a problem if I'm a single mom? Like, I need to just find a guy who's willing to take on this baby like it's his own. It's like, yeah, that would be a very nice gesture. That would certainly be a very, very nice gesture. But that should never, ever, ever be an expectation, I think. If someone knows your situation, they know you got a kid from a previous engagement, and they're cool with that, great. Happy days, no problem. But it should never be like an expectation if you are a woman dating after, you got a kid, maybe you're a single mom, that, you should expect someone to, if they're interested in you, that they should also just be completely on board with taking care of a child that is not theirs. Again, it would be very nice of them to do that, but it should never be an expectation, because that's not their kid. And different people feel differently about that. Some people, don't care. Maybe they themselves don't want kids and they don't mind that you had a kid from a previous engagement. But a lot of people do, because having a kid obviously is a huge commitment with time, finances, money, care, compassion, just mental space, time worried about the kid. Whatever the case may be, it is a huge commitment. And so, again, in the game of biology, which we are all driven, have biological drives and instincts, the instinct to invest in a child that is not your own is really, not favorable. If we were indiscriminate in the environment in which we evolved about who we invested in, then we wouldn't have survived. We wouldn't have continued our genealogical lineage, because we would have just been like, oh, I'll just invest in anybody. Well, then your genes really don't get into the next generation. And if they do, then they don't get to the age of reproduction where they're able to reproduce and the gene line carries on. So it makes sense that you should be very in tune to who you are related to. And oftentimes in evolutionary sciences and stuff, especially when we talk about the kind of what would you call it? The evolutionary quandary, I don't know, quagmire of suicide. Seems to be very strange. Like, most living things have an impulse to survive and reproduce. Like, those are the two main drives, biological drives in any organism, is to survive. And then next is to reproduce. And it seems like everything that you do behavior-wise, foraging for food, whatever, is always geared towards those two things, or both at the same time. Women are often interested in men that can provision for them, that can provide for them. Why? Because it helps them survive and takes care of their young. And men are very interested in what women look like, because they want a woman who is, attractive and young, so that they can are better apt to carry their young to full term. And also, men are very interested and pay attention to loyalty, right? They want a woman who isn't going to stray and possibly get impregnated by somebody else, because then you run into problems like I aforementioned a few minutes ago, that you then get stuck raising a child that's not yours. So again, biology means something, but I'd like to hear from the people if you'd like to call in and weigh in on the subject of DNA testing. If you find out that someone is not related to you, does that then change your feelings towards them, or should you just overcome your biology and overcome your evolutionary impulses and desires, because that's a better way to be? 813-90-BUBBA. I briefly mentioned suicide. Suicide is something that, I mean, it's very bad in mental health, and, you know, I don't want to yada over suicide, but I will, because it's not that listen, my interest in suicide, it's bad. Like, don't do it, obviously, and call the helpline, the hotline. I forgot what it is, 1-800-DON'T-KILL-YOURSELF. But it's from a biological standpoint, it makes absolutely no fucking sense. Like, and when you talk to people who are evolutionary biologists, they don't really understand why it happens. There's lots of theories, but it just seems so antithetical to a living, breathing organism to self-delete. Like, why the fuck would you do that? And I think oftentimes the answer is, you know, a broken brain. But then why don't you really see the same amount of suicides happening in other animal populations? You know, you don't really see chimpanzees killing themselves. I have not really done my research on this, so just kind of go with me. Maybe there are other animals that do that, or if they're really old. And, you know, if you're really old, and I know that there's a place, I think I learned this from The Lion King, you know, really academic resource. Or like the elephants go to a place to die, but they were going to die anyways. But they know they're not fighting to stay alive anymore. They're just allowing themselves to die. A little bit different than self-deleting, obviously, but the most comprehensive, and I guess like the best argument for suicide, not argument to do it, not that I'm saying the reason why it exists, especially persists, especially in the human population, is they talk about inclusive fitness, right? And it makes perfect sense when you talk about, you know, coming full circle, about Hamas, say, where you're more valuable dead than you are alive. Well, you're dead, but maybe your kids have a better chance of surviving if you kill yourself for whatever reason, right? You kill yourself for the cause, and your family gets a few grand because, you know, they don't have a dad anymore, and maybe that money you would never have seen had you been alive. And another mouth to feed. So this idea of inclusive fitness is, listen, I'm going to self-delete because I'm such a burden on my family, or I'm more valuable dead. And so that is the only way that evolutionary biologists have been able to kind of like explain away suicide and why it exists and persists. So it's an interesting discussion, interesting topic. Thank you for calling in. Who's this?
Hey, this is Nick from Iowa.
Hi, Nick from Iowa. Thank you for calling in today.
Hey, it's nice talking to you, Anna. Like the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so your topic on the suicide and everything.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of know a lot about that. My dad passed away, and he of suicide, and it just.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
It sucks and everything.
Yeah.
But he was. He told me, we would always talk about politics and stuff, and he told me with this whole Israeli-Palestinian thing, he goes, as soon as those Palestinians learn to love their kids as much as they hate the Jews, we'll be fine. But right now, they hate the Jews more than they love their own kids.
That's a really interesting point, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just, man, all that stuff that's going on over there is like so horrible, and ugh.
Yeah. It's sometimes it's easier just to not look, you know, because it's so depressing and you can't really do anything about it. And maybe you don't think that the best option is to go in there and use American soldiers and risk American lives. And I completely understand that, even though I feel deeply connected to the region. And it also is kind of beneficial that Israel can hold its own, right? It's not Ukraine begging for shit because they don't have anything of their own. Like, Israel is a force to be reckoned with. So that kind of gives me a little bit more peace of mind. Yeah.
Don't you think at this point most of the terrorists are down in those tunnels, and a lot of those most of the terrorists are probably in hiding right now, right?
I mean, I would assume so. They're probably not in plain sight. But with the terrorists, I imagine, are the hostages. So we're kind of in a little bit of a situation, it seems, where it's like, okay, we're leveling Gaza, but if the goal is to save hostages, I don't know how they're doing that. But, you know, I think they got SEAL Team 6 on the ground. I know there's a lot of special forces out there. So, you know, I'm crossing my fingers and hoping for the fucking best, which is all you can really do at this point.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that the United States is handling the withdrawal of the American citizens? I hear they're having them sign promissory notes that they're going to have to repay their travel costs.
Say that again.
And all that money that's going to Ukraine right now, and it's like, what in the hell is going on?
Wait, what was the first thing you said?
Oh, I read this morning that they're having a lot of the people that are being evacuated signing promissory notes, so they're going to have to repay their travel costs.
Evacuated from where?
Israel.
Oh, okay. Not in Gaza. You're talking. Okay.
No, but the Americans that are stranded in Israel right now, they're talking about they're going to have to repay their travel costs. And I'm thinking, we're sending all this money to Ukraine, and geez, look at the people in Hawaii. They're being left behind.
Yeah, that's a weird situation. To be honest with you, I didn't really do a deep dive into the Maui fires. It just seemed really odd. The things that were coming out, it was like there's been this massive fire. Lots of people are dead, maybe even over 1,000. And then all of a sudden, like 4 weeks later, it was like, oh, it's 87. And I was like, what? And then I never heard another thing about Maui. So I don't know what the fuck is going on over there. That's kind of a little bit of a, tinfoil hat situation for me. But
I think Zuckerberg and Oprah will probably end up owning a lot of that property.
Yeah,
Well, hey, I don't want to hold you up too long, but like you on the show, and we miss Blitz, too.
I know, and I appreciate that. But let me ask you this.
What happened with any of that? It's just like this big, nobody that I know that listens to you guys, nobody even knows what happened. So we're all just like, what the hell?
I know. And again, he has an Instagram. You can reach out to him. Many of you have his phone number. So, you know, if you miss him and you want to say, hey, he obviously would appreciate, to hear from you guys. So
did Bubba get pissed at him or something? Or I'm sure you can't talk about it, but there had to have been something that happened.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, honestly, They separated. They're doing their own thing. Both are alive and well and healthy and happy. So everything turned out just fine. Okay?
Gotcha.
All right.
Thanks, Anna. Have a good day.
Thank you. 813-90 Bubba, if you'd like to call in. It's probably time for me to go. Hopefully the Get Fresh crew is still here. Thanks to Bob Cook and Big Red who are doing work here. Also keeping me safe because they're strapped. Because I would not have done a show without them. You know, I love holidays, but Global Dave Jihad is just not one of them. You know, I like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and I like Halloween too. But not the Global Day of Jihad. That's not my favorite holiday. Not even close. Not top 10. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Mike Thurman, Kevin O'Keefe, and Brian from Philly. Thank you guys for contributing. Bubba will be back on Monday, as will I. So stay tuned. Keep well. God bless, but even more so, please, 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 especially today, keep your head on a swivel. Stay safe. We'll see you Monday. Goodbye.